everyone, Namaste. This is Anjali Kochhar. Welcome back to my channel, Tookwings Blog by Anjali Kochhar. So today's podcast was about, I think, one of the troubles that every entrepreneur faces is about marketing, is about personal branding. So it was a very insightful, very engaging conversation with Smridhi Sharma, who is the founder of Build It Branded and a personal branding coach as well. So we answered all of the questions that you might have around when to look out for a personal branding coach, how can you build your own personal brand by yourself, and what niche to choose, how to identify your core personal brand, what books to read, and a lot of stuff we spoke about in this amazing podcast. And yeah, if you have any particular questions, you can always look at the timestamps and click on the questions and get it to there. And yeah, just let's just watch the podcast now. And of course, any other questions you have from Smriti, you can directly reach out to her. We have mentioned her socials. And if you want to be a part of my podcast, you can reach out to me. Our socials are also there. So now let's get started. Hi, Smriti. Welcome to Kahaniyaan by Tookwings Blog. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's quite a gloomy day, but I'm happy to be here. It's just more brighter to do something like this on a gloomy day like this.
I know, I exactly know what you're feeling because we both are based out of Bombay, right?
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
So, today's podcast would be all about personal branding and, I think it would be relevant for anyone like me who is just starting off their journey as an entrepreneur, or someone who has expanded but still doesn't understand what personal branding is all about. So we'll keep the questions around that. But to start with, at Tookwings, we have a tradition to start our podcast with one story that defines you. So now we know that there'll be a lot of stories that makes you, but we want to, hear from you one story that you would like to share.
I think, of course, there's so many stories, and thank you so much for having me. It's like, I've seen the other stuff that you're doing, and even the work that you do, it's incredible. It takes a lot of grit and courage to pursue your dreams. So kudos for that, first of all. Secondly, yeah, there are like so many stories, right? And especially as you said earlier when we were chatting, like part of creative industries, we have like million of those. But I think something which is relevant to this was I remember having a conversation with one of my mentors back in the day where, it was not really personal branding as such, but he always said that, be true to who you are, be authentic, and the right people will always follow.
Right.
And follow in the sense that not just in a digital space where what follow means, but like the people who are relevant will always join you on your journey.
Hmm.
And somewhere when I went ahead with my career, I did have a good luck in getting some good mentors. And one of the other one also said that, always invest in who you are, because it's great that you're investing in your job. It's great that you're investing in your work, but it has to be you at the end of the day, because that's one thing that kind of will take you everywhere.
Hmm.
And I think starting from traditional media to experiential to now digital and then niching in personal branding, I think this always kind of stayed with me and has become more truer than ever,
Hmm.
because it actually is about who you are, and that's what personal branding also is. So somewhere I feel that in like a grand scheme of things, everything was like just coming together
Hmm.
and it just worked out. So that's not a typical story, but I genuinely believe that it was just like dots connecting with each other and just getting me where I am today, which I think is very it's like a higher power also helps you do that. And I genuinely believe in something that anchors me. So it's just that feeling that you feel that you're doing what you were always meant to. And
Hmm.
working with so many people, especially as you said, it's there's no um category as such. So it's people who've just started and people who've also been in the business for 20 years who need repositioning and rebranding. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's honestly a pleasure to work with so many people, because in fact I was just tweeting yesterday and saying that it feels so good that people trust you with the real side of their business, what is actually happening, what do they need help with, and you kind of take the journey together. So yeah, it's like everything has been weaved together for the final moment.
Amazing. It's lovely. So we want to understand from you in simple words, if you have to define personal branding for anyone who is watching this podcast, what would you say?
Well, the easiest definition is you take a person and you add personality to it, and that makes a personal brand, right? Because a personal brand exists before you even create one. We as individuals, as business owners, as professionals, freelancers, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs exist. We already have an offline personality, and even what you're posting online, a mix of both of these things creates your personal brand.
Hmm.
Now, of course, it can solve different purposes, but in a crux, it's your offline and online personality blended together is what basically creates your personal brand. And that's what a personal brand is. And of course, it can then range from somebody who is probably just posting a few pictures of their perspective of what they see in the world to even Richard Branson, who currently his valuation is 5 times more than his, probably his, these numbers keep changing, but the last time I read it was collectively more than his corporate brands. Like all companies together, his personal brand has more net worth and value. So that definition is different, but definitely it's your personality online and offline built together.
Right. So I get that question a lot from a lot of people, and I also, find it tricky to answer. Like, how do you maintain that bridge? Like, we have our personal lives as well, and for example, at a platform such as maybe Instagram, we want to post those personal life stories as well, but we have a brand to build as well.
Mm.
So for that, how do we bridge that gap or maintain that balance, that we want to show our true side but somehow we have that other side to ourselves as well? So how
Yeah.
do balance that?
So basically, that's a process by design that we generally do with our clients and anybody that works with us. So we start with understanding who you are. So what happens is while we would want to share everything, if you go buy a product, there are two or three things that you remember, and probably one thing that clicked and you bought it.
Hmm.
Even if it is a story, it's one riding main theme that you remember, and then there's supporting themes. So even when we do personal branding, especially when it's with a purpose and a goal, while I always encourage everybody to authentically show up every day, it's very, very, very important, because even if you're going to fake it, if you're going to fabricate it, it's not going to it's not going to work in the longer run. But getting back to how do we understand where to draw the bridge, you got to understand what is that one common factor, one common theme that aligns with your goal, with your personal brand. If you are into personal branding, you are mindful about it. If you're creating a personal brand, you're mindful about it. So you obviously are doing it with one, two, or three purposes at least. If not one, you would have at least three agendas you would want to. Agenda is a little strong word, but like maybe something you, let's say goals. So anything which kind of has a common ground with your goal helps you achieve it. It could be awareness, it could be creating a community, it could be just showing up authentically and creating a tribe. We understand what's that one common theme which will help you achieve that as well. And it also could be authentically showing up. So if it's Anjali and she is somebody who's extremely good with Kahaniyaan, like I've seen your reels, I've seen your stories, you with your grandparents, that is something which is so true to yourself, and you're already creating a personal brand out of it. And then maybe the podcast, it helps you tap into the audience, it helps you give them value. So we understand that one common ground, one common theme, we make that the hero theme. Of course, there are supportive themes as well. Anjali could be a coffee lover, Anjali could be a tea lover. So we kind of understand but supports but not overrides it. And then we create a balance with it, and we make sure that you're achieving what you want to out of it as well. Because personal branding in today's world has also become a very, very important way, especially for service-based entrepreneurs and solopreneurs like you and me, to build businesses around it. You
Right.
know, we are the face of what you do. Anjali is the face of the brilliant articles she's writing, the trailblazing stuff that she's doing. And Smridhi, for example, me, I am known for the strategy I create, for the repositioning, for the positioning, for people to actually reach their audience. So you got to work on that. So then it basically is built around it like that by design. That's how we do it. Yeah.
And another, one of the frequently asked question is about the difference between personal branding and public relations. Like,
Mm.
is personal branding is part of public relations, or are they like two different domains? I mean, we want to like understand from you.
These two definitely are a part of creating your own brand.
Hmm.
That is, it goes hand in hand.
Hmm.
It is not exactly the same thing,
Hmm.
because personal branding, while the terms, oh, this is one of the questions that I get to. Like, I was at one of the networking events, and one of the other marketers walked up to me and said, I thought you were only into branding. That means you create logos, right? Like, how do you do marketing now?
Hmm.
And I've seen on and off, and he's also incredible marketer. So I said, no, the name is slightly misleading, but personal branding is basically marketing yourself effectively.
Hmm.
Personal branding is more about creating your personal brand. So
Hmm.
that becomes your step one. Who Anjali is, who Smridhi is, who that XYZ person is, what
Hmm.
are we doing with them? What does their brand stand for? Who they are? What is their unique value proposition? What
Hmm.
are they creating at the end of the day? What are their goals? So all of this and so much more falls into personal brand. Your PR becomes an extension to sort of distribute it to the relevant audiences. If you have a strong personal brand, PR automatically starts to kick role because you're reaching the right audience. If you have been able to do that properly, people already know what kind of work you do, right? So PR kind of becomes the step three or step four, but it's also a way to reach a larger audience. Now, PR also, you do paid PR, you do organic PR, which you also specialize in. So
Hmm.
this becomes an extension of your personal brand, but not exactly your personal brand. So step one has to be to create a personal brand which can authentically reach out to people. So if that is done, then it's easier for your PR team or for your PR consultant to go ahead and then pitch you out. Because first of all, it has to be understood that this is the crux, and now we take it further. So it's basically different steps, but yeah, they are related to each other, but
Right.
not the same thing.
Right. Right. So, can I, as an entrepreneur, build my personal brand myself?
Yeah, for sure you can. Honestly, we all know what kind of people we are, what do we specialize in. Sometimes we just need a little bit of direction
Hmm.
and a little bit of right guidance in terms of what needs to be worked on.
Hmm.
Because there's a saying, right? A doctor can't heal himself.
Hmm.
So you sometimes have blind spots, especially when you're working on your own brand. So
Hmm.
it's easier for a team like us or for a person like me to actually speak to you and understand only in 3 4 sessions that okay, this is where she is, this is where she wants to be, and this is what we can create around it. And it's easier for us to create that kind of it could be content buckets, it could be your journey, it could be what highlights we are working with or what authentically your brand is. So
Hmm.
yes, you can make your brand. I mean, most of my clients now work with me on coachings. So there are group coachings and one-on-one. We basically just help them understand how authentically can they create a brand. So of course we can do it ourselves with a little bit of professional guidance. It definitely can be done. Yeah.
Right. So, what if you have to tell me like 5 points, 5 key things, I or someone else as an entrepreneur or someone or anyone for that matter should keep in mind to build their personal brand.
I think number one is, more than knowing, I would say one of the most common things that all of us forget is, and this is something that I often say, that you need a personal brand before you think you need one.
Hmm.
So this has to be one of your first things, no matter what career, what scale you are on, you have to invest in it. Does not mean you're hiring a big ass team and paying them whatever. It could be even just authentically showing up, like how even you do it.
Hmm.
Talking to your people, talking to your tribe. It
Hmm.
is so important to start early, because your personal brand will help you navigate if you have a job. While once you change your job, it's your personal brand and your authenticity would helps you land another job. If you're a serial entrepreneur, it will help you get the right kind of funding. It will help you get the right kind of employees even,
Hmm.
because people follow people.
Hmm.
I think invest early on, very, 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 very important. Secondly, please stay authentic. Like so many people try to fabricate it. Your audience is too smart in today's world. They will see through it, and that will do the opposite. They will start resenting you. And while I know people say negative publicity is also publicity, does not really work like that because cancel culture is also super big.
Right.
Three, I would say, don't hesitate to hire a professional when you need one,
Hmm.
because most of us do.
Hmm.
And other than that, yeah, I think four-fifth would be just stay authentic, 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 who you are. And yeah, one more important, very, very important, in the process of creating your personal brand, do not forget your audience. This
Hmm.
is one thing that most people forget. You'll
Hmm.
be surprised, Anjali, 90% people forget that it's the audience that they're creating for.
Hmm.
Once that is taken out of the equation, it's just you,
Hmm.
which will not mostly work because you're not really creating value for
Right.
your audience. So if your audience, your customer is not at the heart of all of this that you're doing,
Hmm.
it has to be a proper balance of personal and business and professional brand. So yeah, I would say these things.
Right. Right. So you mentioned about starting early. So
Yeah.
that was one of another questions I had. Like, how soon do you think that someone who is building their brand should start with personal branding? Or maybe sometimes when you're starting off, you hesitate. You also mentioned about hiring a professional or collaborating. So you hesitate that should I invest in marketing? Should I invest in personal branding? So these are a lot of things you have in mind, that there are a lot of other things that I have to invest in. So should I do
Yeah.
that? Should I not do that?
Yeah.
So how soon do you think that should someone invest in personal branding?
Honestly, the sooner the better, because
Hmm.
it has to be as of yesterday. Like all of us like to say in our industry so much. But I'll tell you why, because personal brand also takes time to build.
Hmm.
While you can put out posts, of course, we can do branding. To create that actual trust with your audience, it does take time. It will take you a few months, it will take you years to
Hmm.
build and win their trust. While you can show up authentically, see, also you have to understand, if we look at this in more of a way of monetizing it or doing it professionally,
Hmm.
and then understanding how early on you invest, you and me as consumers need multiple touch points to buy one product or a service.
Right.
If a customer wants to work with me,
Hmm.
they generally, there's so many people who follow me on my page or have spoken to me but have come back to me after 6 months. Some
Hmm.
have come back to me even after a year to
Hmm.
now work because they've seen me talk about things, they've seen me at other networking events, they've seen me at other conferences where I'm speaking on a few things, and that trust builds up slowly and slowly and slowly.
Hmm.
You also have to understand that we as entrepreneurs also have a drawback of thinking that we know everything. We'll
Hmm.
figure it out.
Hmm.
While you will figure it out, it could also take you 10 years, and those 10 years are very valuable.
Hmm. Hmm.
It could, because you always say, "Hum, aaj kar lenge, I'm going to work on my strategy." Like for me, my team laughs at me. She's like, "Yeah, you're always working on your strategy and you never even then work on it because you never have time. You're always doing client work."
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll say that, but somewhere you got to start very, very early on, because that trust where they actually follow you, that concept of your 2000 followers has to begin very early on, begin. And then that trust where they actually resonate with what you're doing, with the trust with what you're saying, they actually follow it and they actually buy from you, depends on how long that will take. Also depends on how you're showing up and how often you're showing up and how authentically you're doing it. So I would say as soon as possible. uh,
Hmm.
do not wait. Even if it is, you could just take one session with someone. You could also even session just YouTube it. Like I'm planning to launch a big series on YouTube. You can get every information on YouTube these days. Read about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even if you don't want to invest, a book will cost you probably 500 to 1,000 bucks. Do that if you don't want to hire a professional. But start as early as you can. You
Right.
have a profile, start putting a little bit of thought around it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And for people who, haven't started early, let's say, so can at any point of time they start with personal branding and it
Yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah, for sure. I
their.
have clients, Anjali, who've been in the industry for 21 years and have started branding with me like literally last month.
Hmm.
The moment you realize that it's making a difference or it should make a difference, and see what happens is marketing has also changed a lot. You will
Hmm.
not see most of the bigger brands are also doing founder-led marketing,
Hmm.
because just your typical product is not moving the sales or moving the product anymore from the shelves, right? Or even the services.
Hmm.
Especially, there's been a huge rise in service-based entrepreneurs
Hmm.
where people have started giving coaching. It is, even if it is just an interior stylist, an interior designer, it could be a yoga instructor. There are so many people, especially women after pandemic, they
Hmm.
have become, it's a huge rise in entrepreneurship. And there's also a huge rise in people failing at their businesses because they do not understand the first 3 years, the
Hmm.
first 5 years are so crucial, and that's where you should create your personal brand. But coming back to your question, when can you start it? It's never too late to start.
Hmm.
So many of my clients are actually so established. I have literally almost like a 50-50 where I work with um uh, first time entrepreneurs probably in the first year of their business, where it's mostly group coaching because that's what they're okay with spending, right? It also has to be okay on their pockets. We work with them, and most of my other one-on-one clients or the strategy clients that I work with are mostly people who are very well established in their industries, because now they understand that they've hit a plateau. And
Hmm.
these are the courageous people. They do not, they're smart. They've been entrepreneurs for so long. So they know that I need a professional to take
Hmm.
me out of this plateau now. So
Yeah.
never too late. Whenever you understand, and even if you don't, just speak to someone. Like most of us actually are very happy to just do a complimentary call. We don't even charge for it because we are here to genuinely help people.
Hmm.
So just reach out, speak to someone and see if it's actually going to make a difference and how can you do it. And yeah, marketing has really changed. It's become more person to person now. So I would say never too late. Start now. Don't
Hmm.
hesitate. Don't waste another 5 years on it now. Start now.
Right, right. So, when we were talking about being authentic, so I see a lot of vloggers or bloggers, and people follow them. Maybe people won't follow someone who is starting a educative or informative thing at first, but they would follow the lives of bloggers and bloggers. So that also brings me to the point that, yeah, they're just being authentic and people maybe like to watch that stuff and that is there. I don't know. What are your views on that?
I differ on this. So what happens is I would number one want to address the follower count. It's
Hmm.
not that important. Of course, it's a vanity metric. It does make a difference at a larger, when you look at the larger picture. But if you're putting educative content, one, of course, it has to be a mix, right? Like when we create a content strategy, we mix it up with different buckets as well. So
Hmm.
if you're only preaching and teaching and teaching and teaching, of course, even if it is you as a consumer, unless you're preparing for an exam, you would not want to do it. So
Right.
you have to mix it up with other angles of your personal brand.
Hmm.
I would always say do a good mix of that.
Hmm.
And we basically talk about when we create strategy in a marketing funnel, we say, top of the funnel, then you have the middle of the funnel, then you have the bottom of the funnel. So you have to kind of mix it up with ideas, where you, of course, awareness wise, do a lot of top of the funnel stuff, but you also work on the second and the third, and you mix it up with other buckets. Basically, that's how we create strategy. Other than that, while I know it's easier for the other people probably with other niches to work with, if you are staying true to educating people or creating value, the right kind of people will join, right? Because at the end of the day, you want the right audience to follow you. You
Right.
might have 1 million followers and you do not have people who are willing to listen to you or see value in what you are creating. It's not going to work, because even when we do influencer marketing, brands have become very smart. So you might have 1.2 million followers. Like there was one of the influencers that I was working with who had 92% followers were men and 8% followers were women.
Hmm.
And now brands have become really smart. And this was a brand who was tying up with her for skin products. So they clearly said that, you are 92% because you have to share your insights these days. Actually, it's been a norm for a very long time now. Only very early on, they used to just see, okay, every brand, the industry, the people who are paying you are also evolving. This has become a full-fledged industry,
Mhm.
which is creating such big revenues every year.
Mhm.
So now they're also becoming smarter and they're driving everything through processes. So they're going to ask you, they're going to look into your audience.
Mhm.
And so she did not land that particular collaboration because they said, we don't want to tap that 8% women. We want to
Mhm.
tap the 92%, but 92 is men. So
Mhm.
maybe a men's product will work well for you because that's the kind of followers you have, but not a women's skincare product.
Mhm.
So, why did I give that example? Is because you need to attract the right audience. Only then you will be able to monetize it after a point. If you're
Mhm.
attracting the right people who are willing to learn, they will buy from you if you're selling a course tomorrow. They will subscribe to your podcast series if you're actually educating them. But if it is someone who's only into travel and is following you, that will not consume that kind of data. So in the longer run, this does not work. So stay true to you are because it's very important to create and monetize it in the longer run. And brands will also pay if they actually see. For example, if I work with entrepreneurs, a brand will be very happy to say, okay, you know what? I'm launching something which could be a billing software for entrepreneurs. So it makes sense to tie up with me. Vis-a-vis, if I'm only posting my how to get ready with me,
Mhm.
it's not going to work, right?
Mhm.
You kind of need to stay true and do not think what others are doing is different. Numbers can vary, but you can drive result even with 2,000 followers, and brands will still tie up with you if they see it's literally the era of micro bloggers right now because brands have understood that the larger influencers now have not been able to drive good engagement because it's they expect them to be only till about 3%, and most of them are actually not even there. 3% is like one of the highest. It's
Mhm.
under that. So it could be 0.5%, 1%, 1.25%. So
Mhm.
micro bloggers have more hold on their audiences. They resonate better. People trust them better. People buy more from them. So the industry is completely changed. So don't think about that. That's why
Mhm.
I've given you so many of these inputs, which is a little different from the kind of conversation we are having, but this is what the industry is right now.
You're right. That's a very good point you brought up, and that also brings me to one of the challenge that people face. It's a
Hmm.
challenge of a timeline because
Yeah.
it's not like you can build your brand in a month or 3 months or 4 months. It takes years, right? So the challenge of timelines when kicks in, then there comes a problem that it starts somehow consuming you a lot. Like we are doing a lot, we are doing this, that, and then that's we are not able to drive the results, right?
You
So
mean timeline in terms of business or in terms of content?
timeline as in building the brand, timeline of building the
Yeah, yeah. It becomes challenging. Yeah. But that's when you hire somebody or you just take guidance from somebody. There's
Mhm.
so many of these brilliant resources who are people who have created such big businesses and give such incredible free advice. And honestly, I think upskilling is very important. I try and have at least one book which is fiction, which is just for me to unwind.
Mhm.
But other than that, I always read or I am more of an audible person. So I just pick up a book every now and then, which I finish in like 2 or 3 weeks. This
Mhm.
kind of also gives me a lot of input because honestly, learning can never stop. And
Mhm.
building your brand and building your business is like literally like a lifetime process. And of course, you start reaping fruits and results after a while of work. But it's an ongoing process, so you just have to keep at it. I know, but some days you can stop as well. Some days you're like, no, I don't want to do this. And
Mhm.
so the other days you're like, no, I want to keep um at it. And I know, Anjali, this is a little off topic, but I think it's also very important to sticking to do what you want. Like I started off with traditional marketing, led teams. I was into large format events. We've spoken on the one that we did as
Mhm.
well, that you were a part of that my friend approached you for. And I was driving sales for so many of these companies. I was a corporate girl through and through, but I somewhere knew that I didn't, it was not something that I would want to do 20 years down the line.
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, why don't I stop and I probably see? So that's when I started working with people. And then also, Anjali, Knowing unknowingly, my personal brand just created revenue for me from day one because people trusted. They knew that if Smridhi is signing up for something, she will deliver.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped me at clients early on, but of course, it's a different game to sustain that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say please pick up something that you genuinely are passionate about. I know passionate is an overused term in today's world, but something that really makes you happy. Otherwise, you'll not be able to match these timelines because this is pretty much an ongoing process. It's not going to, tomorrow your brand reaches 1 million and probably does even a couple of millions in the top line, you would still want to go further. And that's the drive and passion that you truly, truly, truly are doing what you love is only going to take you there. And that's what I found with personal branding and business growth, right? Like I have, even on days and months you don't have clients, you're really happy because you are then upskilling and you're creating something even better. And
Mm-hmm.
you can show up again because that is something that you truly want to do. So I think this is an unusual answer, but pick up something that really works for you. You will be able to create revenue out of it. Of course, do an analysis where you see that while it is your passion, it also helps you monetize it. And
Mm-hmm.
then just go for it because that's the only thing that will help you invest more and more in you and your brand every single day. There's no other way. There's no
Right.
other. That's what I've learned in the last 15 years. There's no other way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
So,
it's okay to change course. I have changed course. So many people I know have changed course. Sorry, you were saying something.
right. No, I was coming to that only. I mean, is it easier for someone who has worked for a year, couple of years in certain industry to build their personal brand in that particular industry, or we can maybe start in a very different domain and where people don't know us, but we want to build a brand. So, is it like?
I think don't think about the job only.
Hmm.
Especially if you're a professional, think about creating your true personal brand. So
Hmm.
what happens is, for example, I remember of this girl called Ankita Chavla who started at Hustle Rani. She literally started with making her resume on Instagram.
Hmm.
Started creating content around what she does and how she's moving in her journey as a professional through skateboarding.
Hmm.
She used to work with Deloitte, I think. I don't know her personally. I've also just followed her journey for a little few months in between, and I was really impressed because she just started creating her own personal brand. And as you said, job wise, she was working with Deloitte, and then I think then she landed a job with YouTube, and then she started working on her own. So like this all happened in a couple of span of years, I think, for her, if I'm not wrong.
Hmm.
But again, don't tie it up to just a job. Be true to who you are.
Hmm.
And if you do that, the right kind of jobs will come your way.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
will see and they will see value in who you are as a professional and an individual. So
Hmm.
these things do matter,
Hmm.
but I would not say restrict yourself to a job. Of course, if it is being a doctor where it is everything to do with, no matter what you do, being the specialist you are is going to remain common, then of course stick to it, talk about it. But if it is not and you're looking at exploring more stuff, then just stay. If I'm a creative person, talk about creativity. I'm a storyteller, talk about storytelling. If you are somebody who is good at one thing, then probably just stick to that. And then it can help you with the different jobs that you're doing. So I
Hmm.
would say your authentic personal brand. Don't tweak it because then tomorrow it's not going to work.
Hmm. Right. So, at Kahania, we talk about stories all the time. So, we want to know from you, maybe any stories of building a personal brand with any client. If you don't want to name them, we understand. But, any story that where it became actually challenging, to build that brand. And yeah, we just want to know a couple of stories from you.
Honestly, does not one come to my mind, but I can probably just talk about how it worked well for
Mm-hmm.
couple of clients, like how we matched business and personal. One of my clients was actually launching a apparel brand, which was very true to what she and her mother were doing. So we started creating content, which had a common ground with
Hmm.
what the apparel brand was standing for and
Hmm.
what her personal brand for. And honestly, she is like that. Someone who believes in recycling, someone who believes in repurposing jewelry, repurposing clothes, someone who is again minimalistic, invests in quality products. So we started talking about all of these things when we were launching,
Hmm.
worked really well. Even with the IP that we spoke about with this client as well. But again, we started working early on, 6 months in advance. We were already creating these organic cues in the content marketing, even
Hmm.
for the other client as well. Challenging, I think. I'm trying to come up with challenging, but like it becomes challenging when people are not true to themselves.
Hmm.
When, for example, with one client, it was very interesting. I was doing discovery calls with him,
Hmm.
and he said, "I want to be a certain coach,"
Hmm.
and I said, "Okay, lovely, we'll work on it."
Hmm.
And then after a point, he was not willing to hear what we had gathered from the market research, from the focus groups, with the kind of people he wanted to work with. Because we also go and speak to people, right? How willing are you to invest in something and
Hmm.
stuff like that? And he was like, no, but I think this is my personality. So that's
Hmm.
great. But there has to be a balance between what you think your personality is and what others think your personality is. I can think I am great at oration, but someone can find me boring. Maybe
Hmm.
that's why they're not talking to me. And,
Hmm.
we kind of can't evaluate. So it's very challenging to work with clients who do not understand that it's important to take your consumers and the third person perspective. So
Hmm.
there it becomes a little like we are pushed to the corner and to the wall, because you have this thin line where you don't want to um offend them, but there also has to be a way to tell them that it's important to listen to your audience, it's important to listen to other people. So like when we do this blueprint that we create, that's like the step one of creating who you are. How you do it for a corporate brand, we do it for a personal brand. It's also but done by design. So we actually have this exercise where we make you speak to two, three people who are very close to you, and then we speak to people who are absolute strangers.
Hmm.
And then you understand, because you might think that, okay, I'm very interesting and I'm such a thought leader. I'm sorry, someone can, it's not important that other people think the same thing. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's very tricky at this part to navigate and tell people to that, okay, this might be different from what you're thinking. Also, another thing, not a story, but another process we do is strengths and weaknesses, where we understand of how much can we show online and what can we work on and what to work with and what not to work with. So many of our clients struggle with their weaknesses because we give so much thought to our strengths,
Hmm.
we don't think about our weaknesses.
Right.
So, and even sometimes you be wired to show our strengths. So many times people be like, I'm a perfectionist and that's a weakness, right? So like so many times you're trying to disguise your qualities as your weaknesses as well. So it's very interesting with this phase when we do this research and when we create all of this stuff, that kind of becomes quite challenging with a few clients who are not willing to hear the truth. So that
Hmm.
does happen.
Right, right. And as an entrepreneur, how do we find a perfect personal branding coach for us if you can guide us through? Like, what do we look out for?
I think you should always see, very important when you work with coaches, is that are you resonating with their style of work? One could be a brilliant coach, but if you do not resonate with the way they work, you will not be able to drive results. So
Hmm.
see how they work, how they show up online. Um, do you relate? Do you understand? Do you like them? Because you need to have certain amount of liking and respect for someone who is guiding you. So see if you resonate with them. Very, very important. Secondly, please do checks, go through their testimonials, see the kind of results that they've drived, the kind of people they have worked with, what is the niche segment that they work with.
Hmm.
Like some companies only work with Fortune 500 CEOs. Some work with even a solopreneur who is just out of college. So
Hmm.
depend on where you are in your journey and seek a coach who is also driven results, very importantly, because while I love what I do, I also know our industry is saturated with people who claim to do a lot of things and they have not been able to deliver. So be very smart where you're putting in your money, because While money is important, your time is equally important when you're starting this journey. So, number one, a coach you resonate with, a style of learning that will work for you.
Hmm.
Some people like to be just thrown in the the deep end of the water, but
Hmm.
that might not be your style. You would
Hmm.
want someone who's doing hand holding. There
Hmm.
is someone who lets you contribute and collaborate. What is your style of working? Look for a coach like that. Like when it comes to us, we are very flexible in the way we approach. So that works very well with our clients. So you have to see what's the technique, what's the method of learning.
Hmm.
um Second, again, where you are in your journey and what kind of results that coach has been able to drive. Yeah, I think these two things become the crux of choosing one.
Hmm. Amazing. And when we were talking about, picking your niche, or I think one of the important questions that comes in is, how do I pick my niche now? Like I do a lot of things, and now how do I stick to one niche and then build my brand across, throughout? So,
Yeah, yeah. So I'll tell you what I told earlier.
hmm,
When we define a goal
hmm,
and then when we work on the plan, it's basically to understand what kind of niche will help you get there.
hmm,
Goal can also change. It's
hmm,
not set in stones. Don't worry about that. But what is your short-term goal and your long-term goal? That
hmm,
needs to be identified.
hmm,
Long term for some people is a year. Long term for some people is 3 years. Long term for some people is five, and some for some people it's also 10 years.
hmm,
So that we have to go back to the drawing board and see what's your short and long term goal. And
hmm,
then we help you pick up a niche. Because specifically, if it has to do with monetizing it, it's very important to then do the goal setting part. You
hmm,
can show up online, you can create content, you can post 30 reels a month, no
hmm,
problem. But where are you heading?
hmm, hmm,
What's your goal? So once you define that, it's very easy to pick up that niche. Or
hmm,
niche be maybe up, you can define these riding themes. One could be the main highlight theme, then
hmm,
the others can be your sub themes. So
hmm,
you can work with two, three things where one becomes the hero theme and then we work with two, three other things.
hmm,
It
hmm,
can be done.
hmm, hmm, hmm.
So think of your long-term goal and your short-term goal when we're picking up a niche.
And while working with the coach, I mean, how many months of should I think of like collaborating with them? Like, is there a timeline? Should we think of that we should collaborate with the coach with for a couple of months, like 3 months, 6 months, or is it like a journey that is going?
Um, Honestly, it's very dynamic. It varies person to person because some people might need just a session to get clarity.
Hmm,
Some people need constant encouragement, so they also enroll for a group program where they know that it's helping them also learn with others.
hmm,
There's no right and wrong answer, it each to its own.
hmm,
Depends on where you are, what kind of time you have. Like some clients are like, well, I would love to do it, I don't have the time, so please manage it for us.
hmm,
Some people are like, no, I know that I want to stay a solopreneur consciously, so I want to learn it and then apply it myself. So then for somebody, I'll tell you, for some people it takes a session, some
hmm,
people it takes two sessions.
hmm,
Typically about 45 days, so say about 6 weeks to 12 weeks. So
hmm,
it's about 3 months to it, sorry, from about 45 days to 3 months is
hmm,
the maximum that you will need if you are learning. That's the maximum. Most of our clients pick up on these things pretty quickly, like by about fifth or sixth week, they start getting a very good understanding of what they are doing and what they want to do.
hmm, hmm, hmm,
But on the higher end, I wouldn't say more than 3 months. You're so equipped after that to take things ahead by all yourself that you don't need. And then, of course, you can have conversations in between.
hmm, hmm,
You
hmm,
don't have to constantly work with someone. So the lowest would be 2 to 3 sessions. Highest would be probably say 10 to 12 sessions in a span of 3 months.
hmm,
Yeah.
hmm. Great.
That's when you hire somebody who's good at it. If it is taking longer than that, then you've probably not hired the right professional.
Right, right. Great. So, you also spoke about upskilling and the books or the audible books
Yeah.
consume. So, do you want to share, to end the podcast with, do you
Yeah.
want to share a couple of books or, audio books or content that people should watch when they are building a personal brand?
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest, I love Tim Ferriss, for the personal brand that he's created. He's one of the people that I look up to. And also how authentic and how easy. I think I also resonate with him because he also believes in slow living and kind of creates a lot of value and also upskills. That's one of the podcasts that I love. In terms of different books, I would say I actually posted a reel on it. So I'm actually trying to take it up because I curated this whole list of 5 books that I love. Currently, I'm hearing a very interesting book called Becoming a Category of One.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. Why? Because more often than not, we just think that we are like our competitors, right? So this book is very interesting of on how you need to think about what truly differentiates you, not the common stuff that everybody's saying. Okay, I'm a coach, I'm driving results, I can 5x your income. uh, Everybody's saying that in today's world. So how do you become a category of one? So I think that's a very interesting book for a lot of entrepreneurs who are starting out, because it's also very interesting. Second, I would say, is the 80/20 principle. I read that last, and it was very, while I always knew about the principle, I think I have mindfully tried to incorporate that in my business now, because, and it's also my one of my favorite chapters at the start is where he talks about how the entire world works on 80/20, but we don't realize it. Like how 20% of your clients will always generate 80% of your revenue. 20% of your efforts will always generate 80% of results. And 20% of your products will, or your services actually generate 80% of your results, right? So that's one of the very favorite book of mine. The Lean Startup is also one of the books that is absolutely recommended. Then I think something that I struggled with after leaving my corporate job and starting my own company was maintaining a schedule. You're so used to that 9 to 5 to khair hota nahi, it's more 9 to 9. So you're so used to having your schedule around people, accommodating your teams, reporting, and processes. First 6 months, Anjali, I struggled, and that's when I picked up Atomic Habits, where I was like, how do I stop procrastination? How do I create a balance with habits? How do I do more work which is making me feel better? So Atomic Habits, definitely, for sure. The other one was also Start With Why. Again, very important. These all these books kind of make you stop and think where you are going and what you're doing. And yeah, even the E-Myth, I'm actually planning to reread it. E-Myth Revisited. So I would say these, I think I told you not 5, but 6. But yeah, these are my absolute recommended ones for entrepreneurs who are starting, or even like who are into small businesses, are repositioning. These kind of books do wonders. And even with podcasts, I listen to Naval, Ravikant, and even Tim Ferriss. These guys are incredible with the kind of information that they share. Like it's amazing. The curation is very good, especially like with Tim Ferriss. So I make sure every single time I'm running, walking, or commuting, I plug into a Audible or to a podcast, and it's uh it's good to learn from people who have established such brilliant businesses.
Right, lovely. Thank you so much, Smridhi. And of course, we want to, close the conversation with one sweet tip from you for all of those who are listening to us, and one sweet tip for anyone who want to build a personal brand. One thing that will just work.
Start now and stay authentic.
Amazing, lovely. Thank you so much, Smridhi, for this amazing conversation we had. I think I had a personal session for you just.
Yeah, I
And
loved it. I'm so glad we could finally do it.
Yeah.
And I am pretty sure that this is going to grow very, very well for you because you're one person who does show up authentically, and I love that about you. So, thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for inviting me. It's been lovely. And I love the questions because somewhere it's so important the way you create value for your followers. You asked such brilliant questions that's going to help them at least kickstart their journey of personal branding. So, I'm glad that we could do it together. It's a
Thank
good
you so
start to
much.
the weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.